The only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters. We'll bring you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. I am Dan Baker, joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hafner.
and of course the Demented and Fermented,
Wayne Baker.
We are kind of switching things up a little bit for this one, and I'm very excited about that. Normally, brewers and brewery owners are on, and every now and then we get restaurant people and entrepreneurs on, and it's really cool to see that other side of technically the beer industry and the service industry. And this one has an extra special kick to it that I am very anxious to hear about. And I'm sure you've looked at your phone and your podcast streaming app of choice, and you've seen that we have joining us from PlantPub.
Pat McCauley, yeah, I am one of the co-founders of PlantPub, and I consider myself an impact entrepreneur, and I use beer to make what I'm doing, I think, approachable to everybody. I think beer has the ability to do that. That's awesome. I've said for years that there's a nice camaraderie in the beer industry, and I'd like to think that extends a little into the restaurant industry because they're very closely related, so that's really cool. I want to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way, and then I promise we'll swing back to PlantPub. Remember, you listening to this, you can follow along to all the shenanigans and behind-the-scenes goodies. We are at Beer Busters on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook, we are Beer Busters Podcast. There's also beerbusterspodcast.com, where you can add cool things like /shop. There's YouTube, where we are Beer Busters Podcast.
We should clarify that when you say add cool things like /shop, we mean to the end of the URL. As beerbusterspodcast.com /shop.
Oh, yeah. I just kind of figured that was a given, but maybe not. Anyway,
I
yes.
just heard you say it so many times, I never really thought about it, but this time I was like, I don't know if that's entirely clear.
That's a good point. Thank you for the clarification. And of course, patreon.com/beerbusters, where you can get access to the real behind-the-scenes feed and get all the cool little goodies and last call and whatnot for as little as $1 a month. And now back to your regularly scheduled beer busting. So, PlantPub. First off, we were saying it before we started recording, but you are up in the Boston area. You're in Cambridge, right?
Yes, our first one is in Cambridge, and then the one we are getting close to opening next month is right next to Fenway Park, so in the heart of Boston.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay, I have to get my story out of the way. So the reason I immediately responded when I got the request for this interview is, number one, I love Boston. I've been going to Boston pretty frequently since '98. And we were up over my milestone birthday this past April, and I actually had lunch at PlantPub because I've been on Easter Sunday, we ate at PlantPub because I've been a vegetarian for probably close to 20 years, mostly vegan. And the second thing that I was most excited about is I am, of course, a huge Red Sox fan, so Fenway Park is a regular visit for us. And we went to the game that weekend, I guess the Saturday before Easter. And that's when I discovered that you guys were taking over the old Boston Beer Works location at Fenway. And longtime listeners of the show will know that Harpoon Brewery and Boston Beer Works are kind of the two breweries that sort of started my personal journey into craft beer. It was Harpoon IPA and Bunker Hill Blueberry Ale from Boston Beer Works. Those were my original two favorite beers. So when I was, of course, devastated when I found out that Boston Beer Works was no more, but then to learn that not only was a new place going into the location by Fenway, but that it was a vegan pub, I was like, oh my God, this is my dream come true. And then literally the day we came home from Boston, you guys popped up in my inbox and I was like, this has to happen. So that's my little fangirl geek moment of how excited I am. Oh, and I will say, you guys make literally the best nachos on the planet. Vegan or not, PlantPub, I will go on record saying it has the best freaking nachos ever. Okay, that's all. Continue on with the episode.
I love that.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into one of the questions that I wanted to ask. So everything you have there is 100% vegan, right?
Yeah, and we tend to use the term plant-based. Again, we're trying to make plant-based food really mainstream and approachable to the every person. So we shy away from terms like vegan, just because there's so many stigmas around it. And we just think plant-based is more approachable. We don't have any funky colors or Buddhas on the wall, or, we're not doing anything weird. We're really trying to be like a mainstream, everybody feels comfortable walking in the door and having a plant-based meal. And most of the time you wouldn't even know it's plant-based. And we have, such an amazing team and chef that is able to do that. And somebody also who is not, or is very, very recently into plant-based food herself, our chef. So she knows, and she is famous for cooking meat. So, in her previous career. So she hasn't lost that palate. So super talented. And I just think beer really creates welcoming spaces for everybody. So I thought, what an amazing combination of beer and plant-based food.
Yeah, that's perfect. And here in Philly, I mean, we've got a lot of plant-based everything, basically. And there are a lot of really good plant-based foods that taste like, their meat counterparts, which is really, really cool. I am traditionally pretty much strictly a carnivore, and I've been trying to get into more of the plant-based stuff and welcoming vegetables into my life. And it's something I am genuinely excited to learn about and to explore that world. But what led to you wanting to open a strictly plant-based restaurant?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it really starts probably 7 or 8 years ago now. I personally was experimenting with diet, and I come from a sports background. I played college football, and sort of always ate what I think most people eat and consider healthy still today, which is kind of like a high protein mentality. For me, that meant high animal products. That meant eggs for breakfast, chicken for lunch, steak and potatoes for dinner, whatever. And that's kind of what I followed all the way through, my mid 20s. And anybody you asked would have called me a health freak. I was never overweight. I never I was always a super fit, athletic person. But I had all these kind of what we call normal health issues that went along with that. I had asthma since I was young. I had arthritis that I had blamed on, playing football for 15 years and things like that. And a number of other bodily issues. And I just wasn't feeling good despite eating what I thought was perfect, So I kind of just stumbled into it because I wanted to feel better. And 6 months into really going hardcore, whole food, plant-based, all these things that I had since a little kid started going away, and the things I was prescribed I no longer needed. And it was just an eye-opening moment for me, and I wanted to do something about it. And I felt that there was nobody was approaching it in a way, especially in Boston, but I think across the country, that made me, as the guy that was the meat-eating guy that loved an awesome IPA, there was no place for me to go if I wanted to eat plant-based. And I wasn't the type of guy that loved walking into health food concepts and, as I said earlier, concepts with bright colors and Buddhas on the wall. I just felt like there wasn't anybody doing it from a kind of masculine perspective. And I also was in the craft beer industry at the time. So a lot of things were coming together. But for me, it stems from health, and what I sort of miss from my meat eating days is just a normal experience out with friends and family and having a good time. And I think kind of a brewery beer hall setting, those are the places I love and have always loved. And, why can't we go out and have those same experiences and just do so in a more health conscious and planetary conscious way?
Yeah, and you think of all the sports bars and, sports chains that are out there, and it's always basically wings and beer. So yeah, you're right. There is a stereotypical part to that. And I like what you mentioned about, the bodily aches and pains and whatnot, because I have been through that. And ever since I started eating better, the back doesn't hurt as much. The gout hasn't flared up in a couple of years. Every little bit seems to be counting. And I really wish I would have believed people 5 years ago when they told me this.
You mentioned that you sort of went hardcore into the whole foods plant-based diet, which is very different than a vegan lifestyle, because it's eating a lot of raw foods and a lot of things that come from the earth and not a lot of processed foods. And that can be life-changing, especially medically. However, going out and eating at a plant-based pub perhaps could be looked upon as junk food as well. I know with the rise of like Impossible Burgers and Beyond Meat and a lot of these faux meat products, while it's certainly a healthier alternative than eating actual animal protein, and is certainly a healthier alternative for the earth as well. How do you continue to make sure that you're offering healthy choices at the restaurant, but still satisfying that pub food craving that people want?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great point. Like, obviously, like, we use the term plant-based, and even, we don't use the term vegan, but right, you can be a super unhealthy vegan, or you can be the healthiest vegan in the world. Just like you can be a super unhealthy omnivore, and you can be a super healthy omnivore, right? There's a huge spectrum kind of in those two terms. But really what we're trying to tackle, right, at least what I've found over the years, and for myself too, like, the only reason, I didn't want to maybe make these decisions sooner, and the only reason people really don't eat more consciously and better for themselves is because they feel like they have to give up everything, right? They feel like they're losing things. They're going to lose their night out with their spouse. They're going to lose their night out with their buddies, right? And they just feel like life's going to be no fun. And we're kind of all about knocking down that stereotype and showing that you can have all the things you love. And it's there's plenty of juice bars and smoothie bars in Boston and around the country. And that's really not what we're tackling. If you want to reverse health issues, you should be at the smoothie bars and juice bars, right? But you can do that 90% of the time and still go out for your, Saturday night meal with friends and family, and have this kind of conscious indulgence, right? It is an indulgence. We're not, like I said, we're not serving smoothies and juices, but it's meant to be a little better for you and a lot better for the world. And people, like, we love our burgers, right? We love our beer, we love our pizza. And, even myself, as somebody who I consider to be a very, very health conscious person, I still love that stuff every now and then. And if I'm going to a Red Sox game, or if it's the 4th of July, or, I'm getting together with my old college friends, like, I want to enjoy that stuff. And I just want to do so in a way that is aligned with my values and how I treat my body as well.
And I think that incorporating the beer aspect, I mean, and it's all over your branding. You're even wearing the hat right now. Like, the plant-based food and the beer are equal components to this business plan, it seems. And I think beer makes it approachable. Like, someone might say, oh, I don't eat plant-based food or whatever, but yeah, I'll go to have a beer with you, before the game or whatever. And it sort of does open the door, and we've had this conversation about beer we've been doing this podcast for close to 10 years of that, like, that beer that gets the macro beer drinker into craft beer and will consider it. I feel like this is a good way to introduce someone who is maybe a hardcore carnivore, like Dan boasts to be, my brother as well, who has gone on record saying he tries to eat as much meat to cancel me out, but just to enjoy a couple beers and say, yeah, I'll share some of your nachos. Wait, that's plant-based. Wait, that's not real cheese. Wait, what is that? Like, it also starts a conversation. And when you're sharing a beer or have a beer in front of you, those conversations tend to flow a little better, or people are more comfortable having those conversations. So I think it's a smart thing to pair those two.
It also it can be eye-opening beyond that, because I know I think once I had like an Impossible Burger or something, it opened up my eyes to see, like, yeah, there are these plant-based things that could taste, just as good as the quote-unquote real thing. Like,
well, I remember the first time you had a Blackbird pizza.
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, the seitan cheesesteak was amazing.
Was that was before the podcast? That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I remember that too.
Triangle Tavern has a really good vegetarian meatball sub, which is incredible. Like, I started trying to do more plant-based things when I cook. Like, fettuccine Alfredo is one of my favorite things, but like, I'll buy pea protein pasta, and then I'll make a sauce out of cashews and soy milk with nutritional yeast and like onions and garlic in the blender. Like, it doesn't entirely, like, I know I could go into more food science-y stuff to get it on the nose, but it definitely satisfies the craving, which is why I would love to see somebody who is a trained chef, like the chef you have at your place, whip up these awesome meals and entrees. Like, I'm looking at the menu over here, and I'm drooling a little bit. I mean, I'm a sucker for a fried chicken sandwich, and I would love to try your buffalo fried chicken sandwich, because that is what I always get whenever I go out to a bar or a brewery and the friends. Like, this is really cool that you're opening the door and opening people's eyes at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. You get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, again, back to like the beer component, right? Like, you know, tap rooms and breweries, right? They're the only place that I have, as somebody who is very has always been an entrepreneur and observes a lot. They're the only place that you see the 21-year-old hip person right next to the, you know, couple, you know, with their family, you know, family of 5, right next to the 62-year-old blue collar dude after a shift. And it's like, beer just has that ability to bring people together. And again, if you can do it in a way that is inviting to everybody, you're not going to get like our buffalo chicken sandwich when somebody brings it out by you as you're sitting there having a beer, because it's a ridiculous sandwich. And it only takes, you know, somebody one time, you know, trying a, you know, burger or chicken sandwich or pepperoni pizza or whatever to say, wow, I can do this. And we kind of, I refer to us a lot as like a bridge, where we're a bridge to maybe people eating more consciously.
I keep thinking about how easy it is. You know, I've lived in Philly, not a long time, like 6-7 years now. I lost track, but somewhere around there. And it's easy. Like, there's so much like plant-based options available in Philadelphia, as I'm sure there is in Boston and many other major cities, that you kind of forget when you go outside of the cities. It's not as ubiquitous. It isn't quite as easy to find. It's not quite as accessible. And I think having a location at a place like Fenway, and also like approaching it from like making it an approachable thing and not like intimidating and like, you know, something that might turn some people away, will only help to sort of, because people are going to come and visit, you know, go to Fenway from all over and then say, oh, I had this really great burger. And you know what? It wasn't meat. It was plant-based. It was really good. And I think that'll help sort of spread, like get rid of maybe like some of the stigma or the intimidation that exists in approaching plant-based foods that sort of you don't see as much outside of like major metropolitan areas where it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah, for sure. I think if we can do it at Fenway, kind of in the heart of the sports world, I think we can do it most places. But I also did have a Philly story.
Oh.
So I actually have an Instagram post. I'm sitting at Veg. I don't know if you guys know Veg in Philly. I'm sitting at the bar. I was in Philadelphia for the Great American Beer Fest. And this was 2016, maybe. You know, relatively new to the plant-based lifestyle. And I'm sitting having an amazing beer at Veg, and I had an amazing meal as well. And I literally posted, like, maybe a future venture of mine, you know, a plant-based beer hall. It only took 6 or 7 years, but
I mean,
but it did happen.
Opening a restaurant, brewery, beer hall, whatever, that's actually not a bad timeline.
Yeah. I'm going to take away from this that the idea for PlantPub was born in Philly.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
All right,
I'll
cool.
give you that.
Philly started a country, and it started PlantPub.
That is really good. V Street, unfortunately, closed.
Oh,
That was
no.
owned the same
Yeah,
owner.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't make it through COVID. That kind of did them in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But
Well,
yeah.
same thing with Blackbird we were just talking about. They closed, a couple of months ago.
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
OGs.
I was there their last weekend.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was very sad. But hopefully we get through this pandemic and more awesome places can open. And and also I saw today that Earth Bread and
I was
Brewery
just
also
going to say that. Yeah.
announced that they're closing as well. A lot of
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hot off the presses.
Oh, that's sad.
Very
What
sad.
What's it like in Philly, COVID-wise? Is it normal or not normal, or still going on?
In between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it, really.
Well,
yeah.
really, southeastern Pennsylvania, most of us are back in the high, 400 plus cases a day or something. A lot of people are encouraging masks again. Like, yeah, it's definitely not over yet.
Yeah, it's definitely not but like the mandates aren't in force anymore. Like the masking is now optional, but like I would say 70-80% of people I see on SEPTA are wearing masks.
Yeah, same.
Businesses kind of depends where you go. People for a while here were like requiring proof of vaccination. I think that was a city mandate at one point. People aren't really doing that much anymore, but I've been trying to keep an eye on the numbers, and like you said, it is kind of going up again. So
I was at a show recently. I think it was at a concert. I saw the Menzingers. They checked vax cards on the way in.
Oh, okay.
At the concert, which that was the first time they had done that in a while. Like bars and restaurants, like you said, they don't check any of that stuff. I was very surprised and happy about that. Like I do a weekly radio shift for an online station, and we promote shows that are coming up, and more are starting to require vaccinations again. What's it like up in Boston?
I mean, I guess still in between, I guess is a good way to put it too. But very rarely. There are more masks coming back out a little bit, but definitely no mandates or anything like that. It seems 90% normal. Just more masks again.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched the news much. I can't say I've been like keeping tabs. So.
Now, I wanted to ask, at the top of the show, you introduced yourself as an impact entrepreneur. Did I catch that correctly?
You did.
I wanted to circle back to that and ask perhaps for you to define what that means to you for our listeners, and why including that in part of your title is important.
Yeah, I just think, after my experience 6-7 years ago, after I did that, like I left, I was with a brewery startup that I had started with two guys here, south of Boston. And from that point on, like I wanted to do something in the plant-based space, and everything I do, I want to create impact with, like I at this point, I have like no interest in doing things like just to make money. Like everything, I'm just driven like by my experience, and it just like changed my life in so many different ways that I just feel like anything else feels like a waste of time and not really aligned with like what I'm fired up to talk about and do every day. So yeah, like every business I start, and PlantPub is the best example of that. I wanted to do good in the world, and I want people to feel a little bit better than they would have if they went out and had a traditional burger and, traditional food. And I just want everything I do to have a positive impact and not a negative impact. And on the beer front, that goes to, we very prominently feature non-alcoholic beers as well. And, we want people to have that ability as well, if they are, trying to do better by their health, or they're just trying to make a different decision that night. And again, that's another kind of stereotype we're trying to knock down and make more approachable. We'll have a few draft lines at Fenway that are, non-alcoholic kegs and good beer too.
Yeah, non-alcoholic beer is definitely making its own space in the craft beer world. Athletic Brewing, which I saw was listed as one of the breweries that you guys are carrying, they just broke into the Buffalo Wild Wing franchise also.
Wow.
So that's really cool. And I remember years ago, a guy that I work with, he was taking a nice long cold break from alcohol, and he was like, have you heard of these people? Athletic, they make this non-alcoholic beer. And he had shared a few with me, and it was the first time I'd ever heard of it. It was the first time I'd even heard of like a craft non-alcoholic brewery. And now, like 3-4 years later, I guess, since he first told me about it, it's like they're everywhere. And it's cool to have a non-alcoholic beer in your hand. And we actually, in outside of Philly in Manayunk, a plant-based restaurant that's also zero proof just opened. So all the food is plant-based, and all of the alcohol is, all the spirits and beers and wine, everything is non-alcoholic. Everything is zero proof.
Do they distribute their 0% alcohol? Because I feel like I've seen ads for bottles of that.
Yeah, you can buy Do they make their own? Was that your question?
Well, do they make their own, and also do they distribute? Like, can you buy that out in a store? Okay.
The restaurant that I'm talking about, well, it starts with a V. Do you remember what's called, Wayne? It's not far from you
Oh,
guys.
I thought you specifically meant
It's right
it was
near
called
Crust.
Zero Proof. Okay.
It's
Oh,
like a
Crust.
block from Crust.
Yeah, there's
something.
literally like craft non-alcoholic everything now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like gin, vodkas, wines, like the whole nine. It's crazy. Yeah.
And I'm 100% on board with this because I will tell you, as you get older, alcohol is not your friend. Like, you seriously need to drink in moderation the older you get. So I love that this is an option.
Yeah,
You know,
but
even if you don't want to live a non-alcoholic lifestyle, to have, throw a non-alcoholic beverage
Yeah.
in there and you'll last a little longer.
exactly. It's a great third beer. It's a great third and fourth beer. I really think people like. I'd go out and stay and watch a full Patriots game. If I could mix in non-alcoholic beers, but I end up leaving after one or two beers,
Yeah.
because there's no tasty non-alcoholic options. So
It was the
And I-
Volstead by Unity.
Frequent Volstead. Yeah. Dana just looked it up too. Very good. I've only been there for brunch. I'd like to go there for dinner sometime,
Cool.
but it's a cool concept. I saw that you're also trying to have some low alcohol and low calorie beers, like Night Shift Night Light is one that's made up your way that's quite tasty. So I love that. I love that you're thinking about, you're not just like, we have beer. You're being very mindful about the things that are going to be offered.
yeah, and
So-
we do the menu in order of ABV too, which I think
Yeah.
is pretty cool. So you can like pick your 9%er, or you can pick your 4%er and
Scroll down
just
the
you
list.
can be mindful on that route as well.
Oh, I'm always so afraid that I'm going to look over like a 4% lager and accidentally get like a 5.5% IPA because everything else is higher. So that's awesome that you do it that way.
So I have a question and a possible follow-up question. At the Fenway location, is the brewing system still there? And if so, do you have plans to have a PlantPub brewery and brew beers on site?
The brewery is not there, so they took all their brewing equipment with them when they left. At the moment, we are not brewing anything plant pub wise, but I certainly hope to in the future, as we hopefully get a few more locations and we have the ability to, at the very least, contract brew with some friends in the industry and have a plant pub line that is similar. Maybe 5 year-round beers that again go in order of ABV and are kind of take a mindful approach. Yeah.
So you plan on continuing to expand new locations? Is this going to be like a franchise thing down the road? What's the future looking like in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be like the modern Applebee's or modern Buffalo Wild Wings, or we want to be, we say we're redefining the pub, and we want to be, the modern day. We want to bring the pub up to modern standards, and again, back to the word impact. Like, we want to have impact. Like, yeah, we have a little impact doing a couple in Boston, but ideally, I want to be all over the world and do hundreds of them, and get as many people swapping out their beef burger for a plant-based burger, and again, not sacrificing any of the things they love. So yeah, big plans from the very beginning, and hopefully we can do that.
What is your... Sorry, your question's going to be more important. Go ahead.
No, I just had a quick follow-up question. Will the location in Fenway have a similar service plan as the location in Cambridge, or are you guys planning to do table service at Fenway?
It'll be like a combination, primarily table service. If you're familiar with the Beer Works space, it's massive, so we can't really do the kind of more quick service like we do in Cambridge. And there's 2 bars, and so it'll have full bar, and then the front area will kind of use as like a quick service area, and then like the main dining area where the majority of all the seats are and kind of looks like a full-on beer hall will be full service. Yep.
So you mentioned about having people ditch their traditional burgers for the plant-based burgers. What is your go-to plant-based burger? Because I know there's always a big fuss about Impossible versus Beyond and some of the other brands that pop up. Even outside of PlantPub, whatever you guys are using there, like if you go to the grocery store, what do you buy if you want a burger?
If I want to like give somebody the exact experience that they're used to. Like if I'm, 4th of July is coming up here in a few weeks. If I'm going to hang out with a bunch of meat eater friends, I'm bringing Impossible.
Okay.
And that's what we use at PlantPub too. I think it's just as close as you can possibly get to meat. And for me, who hasn't eaten meat in, over 7 years, it's almost scary. So yeah, I love it. The product's amazing. I think Beyond's awesome as well. I just think there's some subtle differences, and our chef also agrees. And we use Impossible at the moment, but we're not tied to any brand, and we've even considered having both and letting the customer choose.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because usually it's one or the other. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I saw that Impossible is now making bratwurst.
Yeah,
So one of the things that I miss the most about Fenway, I mean, and it's been over 20 years, but like leaving the game and picking up a sausage sandwich to walk back to wherever we were staying from the game, like I genuinely miss that experience. And there's not often that I'll like see meat or sniff meat. Like I haven't had meat in over 20 years, but walking out of Fenway Park still, the nostalgia of that experience. So just keep it in the back of your mind for that location when you guys are menu planning.
Sausage. Yes. We are having sausage. We are having hot dogs. We are fully leaning into the fact that we're next to Fenway Park. And yes, you should. And that's a great example of like these things that we have grown up with and love and celebrate that, we know are probably not the best decisions for for our body, like a late night sausage from the sausage guy, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, why can't we have that same experience but do so in a slightly better way?
So not only are you attaching this experience to beer, but with this new location, you're attaching it to sports too, which I think that's almost just as powerful as connecting it to beer as well. We have across the Delaware River in Jersey, in Camden, we have an entertainment venue over there, and Questlove has plant-based cheesesteaks that you can buy. And I will never forget the first time I went. It was BB&T. I don't even know what they call that venue anymore.
Another bank just bought it. I
It's
forget.
now something else, but it's our like half indoor, half outdoor event space. But anyway, I remember the first time I went to a concert there, and I was like, "Wait, I can have a cheesesteak?" Like it does. It connects to experiences, and there are certain foods that you have connected, or even like you said, like a 4th of July picnic, and that was amazing. So I like that you're not just thinking about like building multiple locations, but being very mindful about where and how and what it connects to. Now I want a sausage sandwich.
Now I want a sausage. It is really smart to sort of promote that plant-based, alternatives in a way that's going to connect with people that otherwise it generally doesn't usually connect with.
For sure.
I did want to circle back though and talk about the chef. Which we mentioned briefly, Mary Dumont. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, correct. Yep.
So I just want to talk a little bit. I mean, she's not here to speak for herself, but if you just get a little rundown, I know you mentioned that she was cooking meat, not up until fairly recently, and has a pretty impressive backstory herself.
Yeah, she's amazing. I kind of cold LinkedIn DM'd her a few years ago. That's actually how we met, and yeah, honestly, I didn't think she'd respond. Like I'm this person with a very out of the box idea. Especially 3 years ago. I think things have changed even in the past 3 years. But yeah, she's an absolute culinary beast. She has been in the industry for 25 years. Grew up in the industry. Her parents were restaurateurs and in like the B&B hotel business, and she's just been in the industry forever. She, was the first ever New Hampshire chef to be named best chef by Food and Wine magazine. She competed on Iron Chef, Top Chef. She's done all the Today Show stuff. She's won just about every award you can win. She's opened a Best of Boston restaurant. She's opened most anticipated restaurant in the country. Yeah, she's just an absolute beast and stud. And and she actually has been trying to, since an experience she had, She can probably tell it better than I can, but in short, she was at this James Beard event that they hold for chefs at this beautiful farm. It was like a farm slash hotel slash 5-star restaurant or something that they were holding this event at. And they there was a baby goat at this event. And part of what they do every year at the event is they take the living baby goat and they kill the goat and they cut him up right there and they cook parts of the goat, and that's considered a gourmet experience. And she had never been, like, I guess, that close to the food. It was, for the most part, always delivered in packages. I'm sure she had cooked live lobsters and done all kinds of things like that, but she had never been like that close to it, right? The actual experience of like taking the life and then cooking it. And ever since that, she just hasn't had, she's wanted to cook more plant-based and has been plant forward since, but she just hasn't had the partners that have supported that. And again, she's famous for cooking meat and the things she's cooked in the past. So it was kind of like a strange thing that I connected with her at the time when she was leaving her previous restaurant, which she had opened and operated in Boston. And she was really looking for something that aligned with the fact that she no longer really wanted to cook with animals. So it all kind of came together at the right time. And and then the third partner is a plant-based investor. He actually invests only in plant-based products and restaurants, and he was one of the original investors for Beyond Meat. He's behind a lot of the big plant-based brands in the world, and the only reason I was able to get Chef Mary was because I had already teamed up with him and had some firepower behind me. And so it's just a dream team that is really just all aligned with this one mission of bringing more plants to people in an approachable fashion.
Did I miss it, or are you able to say who that investor is? And we can cut this out if we need to.
Yeah,
I used to work
definitely.
I used to work at a business radio station, and I think I worked with a guy who was one of the original investors in Beyond.
Cool. Yeah. His name is Sebastiano Cosia Castigliani.
Okay, I would definitely remember that name.
That is a fabulous
that is a
awesome
great,
name.
powerful name.
So he actually is a super interesting guy. He owns a winery in Tuscany, a famous Tuscan winery called Querciabella, and he was one of the first in the world to be a fully vegan, organic, biodynamic winery.
Oh wow!
And he's just a very interesting guy. Originally Italian, lives in Switzerland now. And just is just a kind of behind the scenes player in some of the biggest plant-based companies in the world that we all know the names of.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Really?
so interesting.
He's like the plant-based Mark Cuban or something.
Yeah, people call him the vegan godfather.
No,
because he has restaurants all over the world too and stuff, and he'll just kind of like show up and there's a clear room or table for him. You know what I mean? It's pretty funny. He's an amazing guy.
I just have to follow up, but you said biodynamic, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's like a growing. It's a way of growing plants. Obviously, in wine, it's the grape, but it's a way of growing them that works with the land and not against it. So you're not using like certain fertilizers. You're not like wiping out an area of insects or bees or anything like that. You grow everything like in community with the earth, and you don't just like carpet bomb it with a bunch of stuff so that like animals don't get at it and everything.
Right.
So it's like a very organic way of
instead of
growing
like
crops,
sort of tearing out what's there and making it, just what you want to grow. You sort of grow it in with everything.
Yeah, and then killing everything around it that is attacking your,
right.
Like getting rid of the weeds and getting rid of the insects and all the things that could potentially damage your product.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm remember that when I wrote it down.
Now, I don't know if we mentioned this on air, if this was just while we were kind of conversating before we started recording, but you also have a podcast of your own. What is your podcast called, and what is the premise of your podcast?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Thanks
Podcasters
for the call out.
Podcasters got to support podcasters.
I love it. Yeah, it's called Eat Green, Make Green, and that's kind of what I go by on social media and whatnot. And yeah, again, it started right around the time where I had this experience with food and this health transformation. And again, nobody was talking about it in a way that I related to. And I just wanted to, the podcast started with me just interviewing people that had similar experiences. They healed themselves with food, or they went plant-based and had some kind of life-changing thing happen. And the first episode I've had today, some of like my real kind of heroes that I look up to, people like Dr. Dean Ornish, who was the first person to show you could reverse heart disease with a plant-based diet, which he did in 1990 and has done it multiple times since in clinical trials. And like I've had that, like he was like my dream guest when I started the show, because I kind of dove into all the science and nutrition. I wanted to, like, there was a time back when I really wanted answers as to why no doctor, no nutritionist, nobody ever in my life gave me the option of changing what I was putting in my body to address my health issues. And so when I stumbled into it myself, I just wanted to know everything I possibly could. And when I found out things like that, right, heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. And, you know, you can, by changing what you put in your body, right, is more effective than any statin, any drug, any pill procedure, anything. You know, it takes people often from stage 3, stage 4 heart disease and reverses it. Like, that was just mind boggling to me. You know, my dad had open heart surgery in his 30s, and, you know, is lucky to still be with us today. So like, just learning all that, shocked me, and I just wanted to like speak about it. I wanted to learn more and have guests, on. But anyway, first episode was with my mom, who I convinced to go plant-based with me for 6 weeks. And it was a really super fun time. Like we went plant-based, and we went for a walk every day, and it was that simple. And, you know, over that 6-week period, she, you know, got off of a few medications she was on. She lost about 20 pounds. She was feeling amazing. And we just talked about the experience. And, you know, all the reasons why, you know, she kind of knows that had known this information because of, you know, kind of the health conditions my dad had. But, you know, we kind of got into the things in life that get in the way of making healthy decisions. You know, she raised eight kids, and,
Wow.
you know, just didn't have time to, you know, do things for herself. So that's how it started, really, was just, you know, sharing stories. And it started with my mom, because I didn't know a single vegan or person that ate plant-based, you know, and then slowly from there, I started meeting new people, and somebody would introduce me to someone else that had a similar health story or whatever. And, you know, I'm 4 or 5 years into the podcast now. And, yeah, like I said, I'm like interviewing people that, you know, go on Oprah, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, it's been really fun, and I'm super passionate about that. That's probably the one thing that I am, you know, I feel like I will always do, is have a podcast and have a platform.
Have you ever had Dr. T. Colin Campbell on your show?
I have not, but also a huge fan. And yeah, discovered his work again. Kind of like there's a bunch of like OG plant-based doctors like T. Colin Campbell and Dr. Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn, and guys that have kind of been screaming this from the rooftops since the 80s. Yeah, so I'd love to have him on. Somebody I'm having on in a couple of months is Dr. Michael Greger. he has this nonprofit called nutritionfacts.org, which is an amazing resource if anybody is interested. But you can go on nutritionfacts.org and, search blueberries or search heart disease or search peanut butter. And you'll have all these videos that he's done over the past decade or however long, breaking down the nutrition science that we have available to us on that particular food or topic or whatever. And it's just an incredible resource for really factual information on nutrition.
So if they've been screaming it from the rooftops since the 80s, what do you think is the reason that more people hadn't adopted plant-based diets prior? I have theories and thoughts, but I want to see your take on it. Why is it only becoming a thing within the past few years?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, it just hasn't been accessible enough for people. In the 80s and 90s, like, you were either whole food plant-based or you were eating a lot of tofu. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of boring. Like, it was really fruits, vegetables, rice, beans, nuts, grains, seeds. Like, you were a healthy vegan back in the 80s and 90s, and
yes,
now,
yes, preach. That is so
exactly. And now you have all these products that are great for what they are. They welcome people in and they show people what's possible, and they show people, if they want to eat more plant-based, they don't have to, upend their entire life and sacrifice all the things they love. They can still have the occasional indulgence. But I think it's the same reason, like, we all sitting here know we should go for a walk every day or go to the gym every day. And, what happens? Many days that doesn't happen. Many days we default to our old habits. And, and I think people are busy. People are creatures of habit. And if they grew up on certain foods and they have their routines and they have their friends, and there's a lot of social pressure around it to make, better decisions. And you don't want to be the pain in the ass person at the restaurant that asks for their salad without cheese or whatever. And there's a lot of things that go into it, but I think at its core, it just hasn't been accessible enough. It hasn't been kind of put out to people in a way that is welcoming. And again, because of that term vegan, like, everything is so, I'm vegan, I believe in everything. I live a vegan life and am very passionate about that, but there's also, like, a very judgmental side to the vegan movement that I often experience being in the movement. And I dislike that very much. And I think that's also a big reason why more people don't eat more plants, is because of that, of sort of the judgmental side to it. And so I think there's so many different reasons. I could go on and on about kind of my theories, but it hasn't been presented in the right way. And it's there's just so many stereotypes and misconceptions. And meat and dairy industries are also the biggest in the world, and they're
Right.
freaking phenomenal at marketing. And they spend billions and billions a year marketing, and they're just good at it.
Yeah, that was what was at the forefront of my mind. Is it just always seemed like a marketing thing? Because you always think of how powerful ads can be for this kind of stuff, and you kind of take it for granted until you stop to actually think about it. But I even look at, like, we all ate cereal as kids, and the day you found out that, Cookie Crisp was loaded in sugar and Cap'n Crunch was loaded in sugar, it broke my brain, because the commercials always said it's part of a balanced breakfast. And then you learn that it is part of the balanced breakfast that is there on the table in the shot, which is why they're legally allowed to say that. But the cereal itself doesn't account for that. But they advertise it in a way that everyone just assumed that was the case. So I don't know. That's where mine all stems from. But now I kind of like where everything is going with plant-based food and plant-based advertisement, because now, chain restaurants are super on top of advertising when they get a plant-based meat substitute.
And I think that with the tipping point, the reason why in the past, up to the last decade-ish, it's really become much more mainstream to see plant-based options is because it's become profitable. Companies can
that's
make
true.
money selling plant-based foods now. There's a demand for it that wasn't there before. I mean,
Totally.
there's forces behind that demand existing, but like that is the one thing that kind of tips it into becoming mainstream is when large corporations can sell it to you. Then, because like you mentioned, like the meat and dairy industry, and like the idea that we're supposed to eat eggs and bacon for breakfast is marketing. Like that's not,
For sure.
regardless of whether you're vegan or not vegan or eating plant-based, like that's just not a good breakfast. But we've been sold that by companies that want to sell us this stuff, and that's a big part of it is the economics of it. Like when you can open a plant-based pub and make money doing it, then things have changed,
Absolutely. It's got to make money, right? I mean, we're all capitalists. It's got to make money. That's the reality of it.
Even just the shift in the language. I mean, you mentioned it right at the top of the show about emphasizing this term plant-based. Yeah, because anybody can be like, yeah, I can eat a plant-based meal, but the word vegan means such a specific thing. I mean, even people within the vegan world argue about what that word means, down to what you wear and what products you buy, and honey or not, and even with these companies making Impossible Burgers and Beyond Burgers, well, what was the science that had to happen in order for us to create this product? There are strict vegans that won't even consume those things, even though they are labeled as vegan or plant-based. It's almost like this anxiety that can be attached to that word, especially for people that might be unfamiliar or don't consider themselves anything close to being associated to that. But plant-based is it's an easy term to accept and to be like, yeah, I can try that out. It's a meal. It's not a lifestyle. It's not me eliminating things from my life. It's something that's a lot more approachable. And I think it does eliminate that soapbox mentality. When I read the China study by T. Colin Campbell, I literally became a vegan overnight. And I was one of those people like, how dare you do that to your body? Do you know this is what's happening to the animals? Do you know this is what this is doing to our environment? And I was so passionate about it. And to me, it was coming from the right place. Well, no, but this is what we should be doing. This is what's right. But of course, to everyone around me, it was like, you become the laughing stock, or people want to push themselves away. And I don't want to be like that. If that's what vegan is, I'm not going to eat vegan. And it took me, I was also way younger, and, you learn a lot as you get older, but, the way to start the conversation and make this world accessible to everyone, and then be like, hey, did you know that by eating this can happen? Or, it just opens a conversation where all sides are willing to listen and we're not shutting people out.
100%. Cannot agree with that more. And yeah, I mean, that mentality was why, I used to think like, the term vegan, it was somebody throwing paint on a fur jacket and somebody yelling at me when I was in line at McDonald's. And that is why I probably didn't open my mind up to thinking a different way sooner. I was the man meat eater guy that preached about eating meat as well back in the day, So yeah, I just think the more we can take a welcoming, approachable, loving approach to welcoming people into eating a little better for themselves and better for the world, the better off everybody's going to be, and just drop the whole perfection and judgmental aspect that is too common with the term vegan and plant-based.
And I think
and the same thing is in the beer world too. And we've reflected upon perhaps our attitude that we had early on in starting this podcast, where how dare you drink that kind of beer, or how dare you drink a macro beer? Like you're never going to get somebody to put down their Budweiser or put down their hazy IPA or whatever that is if you're just coming at them with judgment. Like you need to, and I think we can apply this to all parts of our life. We just need to open our hearts and be compassionate and just be accessible, in whatever we believe in or whatever we're offering. And no one is going to be willing to listen to our what we're passionate about, or willing to try what we're offering if we don't take it down a notch, I don't know.
100%.
It's just funny how all of these things like parallel in life. Like
Yeah.
you talk about one thing, you're talking about like vegan nachos, and all of a sudden it turns into like
All of a sudden, we're getting super deep.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, even Aldi sells plant-based cheese now, people. Come on, I can go to my local Aldi and get
Yeah.
vegan cheddar like shreds for my nachos, or yeah, they have freaking blue cheese crumbles that are disgusting because I hate blue cheese.
Blue cheese is good.
So
You
that's
open it up, I'm like, ew, it smells like blue cheese, and they're like, yeah, it's supposed to.
that's another problem with the rise of plant-based foods, is that there are a lot of shitty products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate right now.
Well, no, if you like blue cheese, the Aldi blue cheese is amazing. I just don't. I mean,
Just don't
she
like blue cheese.
loves blue cheese, and she
Yeah.
like they're like, this is like the only way you know it's vegan is because it's like in a like obvious like forced pellet shape and not like
Right.
what blue cheese looks
Oh.
like.
Mhm.
But I don't like it because I don't like blue cheese. But their vegan parm, oh my god, it was you talked about earlier, like you get a little uncomfortable, like, is this actually plant-based? Are you sure they didn't just put real parm in here and they're like
Yeah.
lying to
Right.
me? You get nervous after a while because this stuff is so similar. But anyway, I see that's one of those tangents we talked about.
Thank you for
I
letting
just-
me know that Aldi has vegan parm, because I'm going to look for that next time I'm there.
There you go.
It's
There
so
you go.
good, Dan. You have no idea.
I can't wait to try it.
And usually I'm not a proponent of like vegan cheese. I would rather make like a cashew based like cheesy sauce, like not like a replacement vegan cheese. 'Cause
Right.
Usually in my history of eating that stuff, it's not good. But cheers, Aldi. The German engineering, I guess. I don't know what it is, but they have figured
What it is.
something out. We didn't try the feta yet.
German
but-
engineering.
The parm gets 2
let me
thumbs
let
up.
me know how the feta is when you try that.
All right, we'll do.
The cheddar and the mozzarella is good. It melts.
Yes.
Ooh.
I do want to. I wanted to point out something you said earlier, Steph, that I think was a very, very good point. Where you said it's a meal, not a lifestyle. When like introducing people to, I think it's important also to sort of normalize, like, you don't have to like, tomorrow I'm going to be vegan for the rest of my life. You can try a couple plant-based. You could mix it in. Like, I'm engaged to a woman who's vegan, and so like 50% of what I eat is intentionally vegan. And I feel like that. Not feeling like I have to be like all or nothing is very important. It's important that people can sort of work this into their routine a little bit at a time, decide how far they want to go. Do they want to cut meat out entirely? Do they want to cut cheese out entirely? Do they want to, do a 50-50? Do they want to, however you want to do it? And that goes back to what Steph was saying about like that sort of that off-putting soapbox mentality that I think isn't as present these days because it has become so mainstream. It's important also to let people know that like you don't have to like quit eating everything you've eaten your whole life like tomorrow. Like you can start trying different plant-based things. You can start introducing it, and you don't have to be 100% vegan. You don't have to buy vegan soap. You can just eat vegan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's important
I
to
was
like,
gonna say eat vegan soap.
or you can eat. I mean, if you want to, I'm
Before
sure.
now. Or how about this concept? I want to go eat at PlantPub because the food is good. Period.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
No.
Because they have a beer on tap. I want to drink. Like
100%.
that would be amazing once we
Yeah.
get to that point where like it's just
Not
another
even a
cuisine.
consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like if the food and the experience is good, like nothing else really matters. Right?
Amen.
That's true. Well, on
I
that
feel
note,
like we should play a
I was just
game.
gonna say, yeah. On that perfect note, I think we should.
Well, it just so
Right?
happens I already have it pulled up on my phone.
Oh,
I
hey!
felt that it was coming.
You guys play a game every time on the show?
We
Yeah.
do. We do.
Wow, cool.
Cheers, Internet, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the podcast trivia segment that's still waiting to book Will Wheaton.
Ha!
Oh.
That was at one time our dream guest
Yeah.
on our podcast. So as soon as you said that's the first thing that popped into my head. But this is Happy Fun Time Games, and our guest, Pat McCauley from PlantPub, will face off against my co-hosts, Dan and Steph, in a cutthroat contest of wits in today's game, which is There's Weird in My Beer.
Oh.
So this is a game where I'm going to tell you a little bit about a beer that has a weird, bizarre, funny, strange ingredient in it. I'm going to give you 3 multiple choice options, what that ingredient is, and you must tell me what the weird is in each beer. No prize for winning, no punishment for losing, but bragging rights and shame. All the beers in today's game, by the way, come from a brewery that shares a name with a fictional 2-dimensional universe featured in a classic geometric adventures of one A Square, Flatland Brewing Company in Elk Grove, California. You be here for Red Flatland?
That was a long way to get there.
I know. To make some reference to it. Flatland is a very good book about two-dimensional shapes that live in a two-dimensional world, and it's fun, and it's also very mathematically informative.
And I immediately went to It's Hip to Be Square from Sesame Street, their parody of it, or It's Hip to Be a Square from Sesame Street, the parody of Huey Lewis's Hip to Be Square. That's where my brain went when you said flat.
Got all kinds of connections, but we will begin this game as we often do to Dan, who is in spirit to my left, with our first beer of the game. This beer is called Beachfront Avenue. It's a Berliner Weiss brewed with passion fruit and tangerine purees, but that is not enough to earn an entry in this game. This beer is taken to the next level of weirdness with the addition of a nostalgic liquid. Is it Sunny D, Ecto Cooler, or Kool-Aid?
I'm going to go Sunny D.
Dan choosing the Sunny D. Steph, what do you think?
What, tangerine and what?
The fruits were passion fruit and tangerine.
I could see using Kool-Aid for the color. You're not going to get much flavor out of it. Yeah, I'll go Kool-Aid. Just in to a nod to a previous guest that I won't mention that uses Kool-Aid.
I was thinking the same thing. Steph is going with Kool-Aid. And finally, Patrick, what do you think?
I got to go Sunny D as well.
Going with Sunny D, agreeing with Dan. A very good decision because it is, in fact, Sunny D. Just past the purple stuff, Beachfront Avenue Sour is made with an all-time favorite of the Flatland staff, a delicious childhood beverage packed with vitamins. They don't mention it by name, but you know what it is. They say it brings a tropical explosion to your face.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if that sounds pleasant or not, but that's what they say. Moving on to our next beer of the game. Steph, you are going to guess first on this one. This one has my favorite name of the day. It's called Dynamite with a Laser Beam. It's a hazy IPA that is guaranteed to blow your mind, or at least that's what the name would suggest.
That's what it is, right? That's a Queen lyric, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Dynamite with a laser beam, and it's made with, in the brewer's own words, a bunch of unusual ingredients. Perfect.
Oh, dear.
But by a bunch, they meant two. One of them is coffee, which is really not that weird, but the other ingredient comes from the same neighborhood, but the other side of the tracks. Is it orange juice, Fruity Pebbles, or grapefruit?
Wait, say the thing that Dan got that I missed. I know Dan knows the answer.
There's two weird ingredients in this beer.
Yeah.
The first one is coffee. The other
That's
ingredient
not weird.
Comes from the same neighborhood as coffee, but from the other side of the tracks.
The other side of the tracks.
It's a good thing none of your brains went where mine did.
I don't know where his brain went. I was just, because these are all breakfast
liquids. I was like, what did I miss? I saw his face,
things.
and I was like, okay. So, and the options again were...
So it's coffee and ... orange juice,
an ellipsis,
Fruity Pebbles, or grapefruit.
Yeah. I'm like, is this an orange theme? And all the answers are going to be like orange things?
Pretzels.
Is it like pretzels? Did you only put Fruity Pebbles in there because of me?
So many questions. I'm legally not allowed to answer.
Orange juice.
Steph is going with the orange juice. Patrick, what do you think?
I'm going Fruity Pebbles.
Going with the Fruity Pebbles. All right. And Dan?
I'm going to say OJ.
Oh, 2 OJs, 1 Fruity Pebbles. The Fruity Pebbles have it.
Oh, nice.
It is, in fact, Fruity Pebbles. Yes.
I'm destined to lose this game.
Just like dynamite and laser beams can both cause destruction, fruity cereal and coffee both evoke morning meals. Also like dynamite and laser beams, the two are not often mixed together, in my experience. But to be fair, the coffee that was used was a light roast, with what they said were fruity notes. Surpassed, complimented. Well, Fruity Pebbles and coffee, dynamite, with a laser beam. Moving on to the penultimate beer of the game. This and one more. Patrick, you were going to guess first on this one. This one is another fruited sour and is called simply Swirl. It's got the classic combo of blueberry and lemon. These flavors rest snugly upon a creamy bed, courtesy of the inclusion of, is it whipped cream cheese, marshmallow spread, or soft serve vanilla ice cream?
That's an interesting one, huh?
Just when you think it can't get any worse.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm praying it's not cheese. You know, I can't say cheese is my. I'm gonna have to go the soft serve.
All right, going with the ice cream. Dan, what do you think?
I'm not gonna lie, I missed the description and the options because I was dealing with something off camera, but I'm not gonna make you repeat it. I'm just gonna say C.
That would be soft serve vanilla ice cream.
Cool. Let's do it.
Same thing Patrick said. Finally, Steph.
Okay, well, I don't want to pick soft serve since the two of them did. What were the other options? I am going to make you repeat them.
Whipped cream cheese.
Ew.
Sorry about that, Dan. Just blew in the microphone.
Thank you for acknowledging it. Thank you.
Yep. Or marshmallow spread.
Why would anyone do that to themselves? I'll say marshmallow spread, but why any brewer would do that is beyond me.
No love for the whipped cream cheese. It is, in fact, the ice cream.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's not
Nice.
the marshmallow. It is the ice cream, Dan and Patrick. We're correct. Swirl is an ice cream-inspired sour ale, though since it actually contains ice cream, I don't think inspired is the proper adjective to use there, but that's what they call it. It's got blueberry, lemon, vanilla soft serve, and also vanilla cookies, just for good measure. Swirl, blueberry, lemon, and ice cream. So now we're going to add up the score, see where we stand, see who's going to guess first, last, or otherwise for the final question. And Patrick, our guest, has a perfect score thus far.
Don't be jinxing me now.
3 out of 3 correct. Dan is just behind with 2. Steph not having a good night and happy fun time. No points yet. So you can't win, but you can at least not have a goose egg on the board. So we're going to make Patrick guess first, Dan guess second, and Steph guess last. So she gets to hear.
I need to
your
not
answers
think logically. That's the
first.
problem. I'm always terrible at this when I think logically.
I'm going to preemptively tell you that the final beer in this game is a very anticlimactic conclusion. Finally, we end.
And the answer is not orange.
Finally, we end with a Mexican hot chocolate stout called Cafe Picante.
Oh, that
Yes,
sounds
it
nice.
has all the things you would expect: cinnamon, vanilla, coffee, cacao nibs, and chili. But my question is, how much picante is in the cafe? Is it made with 2 types of chilies, 5 types of chilies, or 8 types of chilies? Patrick, you're up first.
You know, let's go big. Let's go big. That's a spicy brew. Let's go 8.
All right, going with 8. Dan, what do you think?
I am going to say 5. 2 doesn't seem like enough, and 8 kind of seems like too much.
Okay, going with 5. And
Yeah,
finally, Steph.
It's not the variety, it's the number of peppers. And it's also whether or not you keep the seeds in them. And you said it was anticlimactic, so I'm just going to say 2.
All right,
Good
also
point.
saying 2 because that's the answer no one chose yet. The answer is, in fact, as Dan elicited through the Goldilocks pricing, is B. 5 types of chilies. Not too much, not too little. Yep, 5, the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone. And for the most anticlimactic ending to today's game, I will conclude by saying I do not know what those 5 chilies are. I could not find that information.
It's a secret.
Also, there's another version of the beer that has 7. So who knows? It could all be wrong, but it's just a game. Nobody knows. So that is the end of the game. And
Man.
we have not quite a German Sparkle Party, but we do have a 2-way tie for first place with 3 points each. Dan and Patrick, very good showing. Not quite perfect, but close. Steph, unfortunately, you got that last one wrong too. Still sitting at zeros, but
That's
as
all right.
is painfully evident, it doesn't matter. Thank you all for playing. Thank you if anyone is watching this somewhere at some point in the future. We appreciate that. But this is the part of the podcast where we shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. We would like to thank the following individuals very sincerely, beginning with Jen McDonald.
Fruity Pebbles.
PA Brew Review.
Diplo something or other.
Eric Dixon.
Vindicated.
Dana.
Oh,
James Lamberg.
pow, pow, flavor, cool shit. Fuck yeah.
Chris Mahoney.
I'm so fancy. You didn't even know?
Sean Sullivan.
Don't let it piss you off.
Brian Mills,
Beer is every place.
Jill Jivers,
Sprinter Dan.
Joe Mansell, the one and only that's no baloney. I almost forgot. Joe
Wee
Mansell.
heavy.
Topher Simmons,
Uinta.
and finally Ben Menkel.
Verdammter Einer.
Something like that. If you want to find out how you can get your name on this list and get other cool behind the scenes perks, go to patreon.com/beerbusters to learn more. But now, let's pay our tab.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
Hey guys, we want to tell you about Audible. Audible has audiobooks available for download, and you can listen to them on the go, in the car, while you're jogging, while you're drinking beer. You can find books like Brewing Up a Business, Adventures in Beer from the founder of Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, revised and updated. Find books like that and more at audibletrial.com/beerbusters. Once again, go to audibletrial.com/beerbusters. Get a free 30-day trial of Audible and download and keep one audiobook forever.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, Pat, from your bio is a few years back, you did a TED Talk, which I'm really, first of all, that's pretty freaking cool. And I was wondering, like, how does something like that come about? And also, what was the experience like?
Yeah, that was 2018 is when I gave the talk. And yeah, I had started talking about what I talk about, plant-based diets and the power of it from a health standpoint. And somebody locally at Babson College here in Boston, a faculty member who organizes the TEDx talks, was familiar with me and, consumed my content to some degree. And I was a fill-in. I got a call 2 weeks before. Somebody way more important than me dropped out. And this woman just happened to think of me. They had nobody kind of talking about health at that one. Like the events, they usually have like 10 speakers or something like that, like 5 to 10 speakers. And it's kind of like a full event of like talk after talk, and you can buy tickets and whatnot. And I was just a last minute fill-in. And I had, 2 weeks to come up with what I wanted to say. And I think that was like super helpful because I didn't have time to really overthink things. Mm-hmm. And with like a TED Talk, like you can't mess up, like there's no editing. It's like they film it and they put it on their YouTube channel with whatever, 10 million subscribers or whatever it is. And you have it's either 16 or 18 minutes. I think it's 18 minutes. So like you got to say what you want to say in a concise fashion and make it happen. And I had sort of started like talking at schools and, to sports teams and things like that, just about my experience. So I had talked like a little bit, but like this was like a pretty big step up, and I was just nervous beyond belief. Especially because like, again, it's filmed, it goes out to millions of people, and it's like, I was scared shitless. I'm glad I didn't, say no to it. I said yes and did it despite how fucking scared I was. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I think I had such a short time frame and was so nervous, so that I really had no choice but to share my story in like the realest possible way, because like when I would get nervous, like I defaulted back to, well, I know my freaking story. Like I can tell my story. So that was a little comforting. And that was that. And, I hope that's why, like a lot of people have watched it, is because like it was me and my experience of the past 5 years before that.
Did you go back and watch it?
So it takes like, I think it probably took 3-4 months until they like, fully like, have them all edited and ready to go up. And then they like sent me a Google Drive link. So I didn't watch it until like 3 or 4 months after I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe you can relate to this having your own podcast, but I don't like to listen to our podcast. Like one thing, I'm like, I was there. It already happened live. I'm one of those people that doesn't like to watch like movies a second time also, but I also find I judge myself when I'm listening to myself also. Like, why did you say that? Why did you say that way? And I'm like, I don't need that anxiety in my life. So I was just curious if like, I did this and it happened. I don't need to ever watch it.
Yeah, no, I watch it. I guess I had been on podcasts and talking enough where like I was kind of over the fact that I sound the way I sound and am the way I am, and I'm living with it, you know?
Yeah, it's still weird when people are like, oh yeah, I recognized your voice. That's still like weird to me.
Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that you get comfortable with is the sound of your own voice. You still judge the things you say when you hear yourself back and the way you say them, but you like that initial, like, you know, people always say when they hear their voice back, it always like sounds really weird. I think that was the first thing I got comfortable with in the podcast was like, oh, that's how I sound to other people. And like, now it's just normal to me.
Pat, you do your podcast solo, right? I mean, you have a guest, but you're the only host.
Yes, correct.
Like, at least with these two idiots, like, at least I know if I start stumbling or lose where I'm going, one of them is there to save me. And the three of us have known each other our entire lives since we're all related. So there is a little bit of comfort in that, like comfort in numbers and comfort in family. But I don't think I would want to do a podcast, just me. That's too much pressure.
That is a lot. I feel like
That's
Dan
fair.
could do it.
I've thought about it. I actually recorded one just by myself at one point, and I don't like it. It's still on a hard drive somewhere, but I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day.
With a guest or with no guest?
Just me.
That's
just
even
an
worse.
audiobook.
Yeah, it's an audiobook.
Or I was going to say a stand-up routine, but
well.
So, Pat, if people want to check out more about PlantPub or, you know, just go down the line of where they can find you, the socials, the websites, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so PlantPub is plantpub.com. It's at PlantPub everywhere. I am eatgreenmakegreen.com and at eatgreenmakegreen everywhere.
Very cool. So
and
you know
let
what
us
to
know
do.
when you're opening your first Philly location, and we will be there at the ribbon cutting ceremony.
100%. I would love to do one in Philly.
Honestly, I feel like it would be received very well here.
Oh,
I think it would. Yeah, there's a lot of plant-based restaurants and restaurants that have plant-based options in the city.
Yeah.
And there's more constantly popping up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
beyond the cities, like when you said you want to be like the next Buffalo Wild Wing or Applebee's, like I would love to have something like this just everywhere and not just have to get it in the city. Because I know if I'm going to drive to Boston, there's plant-based options. I know if I'm going to drive into Philly, there's going to be plant-based options. But there's so many areas beyond those cities that hopefully it will make sense one day to put places like that there too.
Definitely. What's the Philly like sports arena setup like?
They're all in one complex.
Very far away from everything else.
It's all in one huge, gigantic concrete jungle.
Outside of the city or relatively...
It's right off the interstate. It's not like Boston where you leave the arenas and you're in the city. You leave the arena or the ballpark and you're in parking lot, and then you're on the interstate.
Yep.
Like you can't really, I guess, like from where you used to live, Dan. Well, even where you are now, you theoretically could walk there, but
yeah, there's a neighborhood that's not too far away, and there is a tiny shopping center there that has a Chickies and Pete's, which is like.
I was going to say there's a Chickies and Pete's. You could take their spot.
Yeah, please do. I should probably cut that out. But I mean, there is a little like pizza place next to it, but they don't have alcohol, and it's a very South Philly place. South Philadelphians are very intense about being, let's just say, creatures of habit. Since we already mentioned that phrase earlier tonight.
That's like South Boston.
Oh boy,
kind of, yeah. But actually, a few years back, Citizens Bank Park is at the Philly Stadium.
Yeah,
they were actually voted one of the most veg-friendly ballparks in the country.
Yeah, they have a standard too. Yeah, they have a standard too that are just veg. In fact, I went to a Phillies game a few weeks ago. People from work, one of the guys I work with, he and his girlfriend are both vegan, and they were able to, on Dollar Dog Night, get $1 vegan dogs, which is really cool.
No kidding.
We do also have a complex called Xfinity Live, which is like in the heart of the parking lot of all the places, which is great for when you're like in line to go to a GA show and you have to use the bathroom. But they do have a couple bars and restaurants, and they often do live music there. So it is like if you want to get to the venue early and go somewhere to eat that's not in the arena, there is that complex too.
But I'm sure you can find a decent spot, somewhere in Philly that'd be very receptive to you. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We'll come record there when you do.
Would love
Yes.
to.
Yes. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's all, there are steps that you have to take to get there. But, while you listen to this are out there looking for Pat and for PlantPub on the internet, remember, you can follow along with us. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, we're at BeerBusters. On Facebook, we are BeerBusters Podcast. There's BeerBustersPodcast.com. With a tab you can click that says shop. There's YouTube where we are Beer Busters Podcast. And of course, there's patreon.com/beerbusters where you can get all the cool, fun, behind-the-scenes stuff for as little as $1 a month.
To be fair, if you go to beerbusterspodcast.com on mobile, there is not a tab. You have to click the menu thing and scroll down to shop.
Do that. And after all that work, buy a fucking shirt.
Yeah, please. Or masks. We still have masks.
Or masks, yes. Because we did talk about, we had COVID Corner. We can't not have COVID Corner in a podcast episode. Oh, man.
It doesn't have his own little theme song.
Yeah, right. I thought about doing that once. I'm not going to lie.
No, please don't. Please don't.
No, it was too depressing.
Okay.
Way too depressing. Pat, thank you for joining us, man. This was great. It was awesome.
Yes.
Hey, thank you for having me. I
Of
greatly
course.
appreciate it. And it's awesome to meet all of you.
Likewise.
Thank you. You as well.
Likewise.
Thank you.
And I say I don't travel a lot, and I would love to get back to Boston, and now I have somewhere I got to go when I'm in the Boston area. And
Get
plus,
the nachos. Get the nachos.
you said the nachos. I got to do the buffalo chicken sandwich because it's me, and a couple of beers, of course. Although I did want to ask this because I was looking at the desserts, and I know you have ice cream. What is the base of the ice cream?
It's oats.
Oats. Okay, I figured. I figured because I know oat milk is a little creamier than other stuff.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's oat based.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I think if you're going to get non-dairy ice cream, oat milk ice cream is the way to
Hold
go.
on. So it's probably the most important question, and kudos to those that lasted this long and didn't turn us off yet. When is the Fenway location opening? I feel like this is something we should have asked way earlier in the episode.
So we don't have an official date yet, but if things don't go horribly wrong, in the month of June. So
Oh,
cool.
holy
Oh,
crap.
nice.
yeah.
I did
what is
catch
it?
Amazing.
in the
It's
beginning
already
you
May
said next
31st.
month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh. That's way sooner than I was expecting you to say.
so when you're
sooner
hearing
than
this
later.
episode out there, it may already be open. Check it out.
Yeah,
Look it
I
up.
won't lie. I kind of figured it was going to be next season because I thought, it's not often you see a restaurant or stand open up in the park in the middle of the season.
Well, it's not technically in the park. It's literally right.
Well, I
across
guess,
the street.
park adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tried to, we were super aggressive trying to get open for like opening day.
Yeah, I bet.
And that just, it wasn't in the cards, but it was attempted.
Yeah. Well, the thought was there. But it's still cool. That's exciting. It's right around the corner. That's amazing.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, I think, unfortunately, this does bring us to the end of another episode of Beer Busters. And, thank you again, Pat. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Great to
course.
meet you.
Likewise. And, of course, you listening to this, thank you for listening. If you can, all we ask is for a rating and review on the podcast app of choice. Do that for all the podcasts you listen to. And yes, that
Including Eat
includes...
Green, Make Green.
Yep, Eat Green, Make Green. Well, my name is Dan Baker. I am joined by my co-host and brewologist.
Steph Hefner.
And, of course, the demented and fermented...
Wayne Baker.
Remember, no squids were harmed in the making of this episode because we are a plant-based podcast. And we'll see you next time.
At least for tonight.
Yes. Yeah. We're biodynamic.
Hey, you're composting now, so
That's
you're
true.
getting
Yeah, I'm
one step
well,
closer.
we're attempting to.